What's up, everyone? It is 2 p.m. on a Wednesday afternoon, which means you're tuning in to Cannabis Legalization News. Today, we're joined by Joel Silverman out of Montana. He's going to talk about the two ballot initiatives that folks will be voting on in Montana. But first, we do have to get into a little bit of cannabis legalization news. So, Miggy and Tom, how's the news going?
Oh, the news out of Illinois is just more corruption, standardization. It's just, it's not great there. But hey, welcome to another Wednesday at 2 p.m. And if you're joining us on the audio, podcast first, great. You can find us on YouTube now at the Collateral Base or on Miggy's channel. And Miggy, how do we find your channel?
Dude, at that URL, so I don't have enough subscribers quite yet to change it.
So like if somebody goes to like Google, though, no, not Google, Facebook, no. YouTube, Google, to search for your channel. If they put in like Miggy 420, will it come up?
They should be able to ping me on that way too. And then we should
awesome.
throw it a newsletter, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. And then go over to Cannabis Industry Lawyer or Cannabis Legalization News and subscribe to our newsletter there so you can stay abreast of all cannabis legalization news, including all that stuff that came out of Illinois. Let's see. What's the date on this one? October 13th. At 7:29 p.m. The Sun-Times, the Chicago Sun-Times, is reporting Cook County Commissioner and ex-pot regulator admits ownership in that Americana Dream company that got so many of those tickets. And it looks like it's more rigged stuff.
This is just like, I mean, I get it, though. You know what? With the president in charge, the way shit, you can do shit blatantly.
You did, like, what is it? What's in it for me? Like, or you could use the White House to stump speech. It's like you can.
You mean the Hatch Act? There's no such thing as a Hatch Act. Did you know?
I mean, there's laws that says you can't do that.
You use the military ban? No.
Yeah, well, I feel good things about what's coming up, and we are going to talk about some election news. That's great. We reported on this actually a bit ago, but New Zealand, remember? We reported on New Zealand. Well, High Times is reminding us that New Zealand gets to vote on cannabis legalization Saturday. So Saturday will be October something or other. They've spelled legalization wrong, though, in High Times, according to the New Zealand audience. You actually spell legalization with an S in New Zealand.
That's how I spell it sometimes.
Yeah, when I spell it wrong, I usually S. Yeah,
like, it just looks better with a Z. I don't know why.
Yeah, like you're zationing it. Oh no, it's less.
But also,
New
Zealand, Mexico might be thrown on there in October. So we got two countries coming up.
That's good. Yeah, but that Mexico market is going to be crooked as hell. I mean, they do corruption down in Mexico, and they do it way more spicy than I think we do it in America.
Oh, yeah. Wait, well, I know a friend who lives in Sonoma, and he talks about driving past fields of cartel cannabis. So, I mean, that's already happening. They already got the fields. And
they're just going to give them a license now. It's like, here you go, sir. Thank you. Yeah.
Maybe it'll be less shooting. I don't know. But did you know?
I'm for less shootings if we can get less of those. Yeah.
Yeah, less death is great. Mm-hmm. Did you know if you lived in Maine, you're called a Mainer?
No, I did not know if you lived in Maine, you're called a Mainer.
Mainer spent over $250,000 on their first legal weekend after 4 years. It's finally there. They can go to a store now after 4 years.
Maine is also one of those states that's got basically nobody in it. And so, I think the population of Maine is about 700,000. Like Vermont legalized, and the population of that's only like 620,000.
Yeah, but
so small states are getting it. Legalization. It's not yet it's for big states. California, 40 million, all the way down to Vermont, 620,000.
Well, $250,000 is not too bad for a weekend.
Yeah. You know what else happened? A couple of other things. In cannabis legalization news, we turned to hemp. In hemp, a complaint for declaratory and injunctive relief was filed by the Hemp Industries Association, In Re Botanicals, Inc., against the DEA. And they say a whole bunch of other stuff. We were knocked off the air, and so we weren't able to go live on that. But now we got to read this. It's like 30 pages, and it's all about how the DEA is being a subterfuge. SBUTR fuge.
I mean, it's great that they initiate this lawsuit, but
these are expensive. Like, this is an expensive lawsuit. This is going to be at least $100,000.
But how do you know it's going to get momentum? Like the thing just recently that got stopped in the Supreme Court with the the lawsuit with the kid and the football player.
Right. They just kicked it. They declined to hear it. They declined to hear all sorts of cases.
Do they even get like a reason why, or it's just more like?
Do you think that abortion is going to be re-legalized if Amy Cohen Barrett gets onto the court?
That's just more paperwork, dude. I mean,
I just think that it's weird that time goes backwards sometimes, and we're still in the backwards times when it comes to cannabis because it's still federally illegal.
Yeah, well, that's
subverts.
Well, and then we're still getting pinged on social media. How the F does that still go?
All right, we're getting pinged on social media. Thank you for joining us on our new channels, The Collateral Base, and also Miggy 420.
Yeah, my mystery channel until I can rename it.
Well, the thing, and then, of course, go to CannabisIndustryLawyer.com and sign up for our newsletter. That's the other way that you can always keep in touch with us. But it's the redundancies that you have to build into the system because what you are doing is technically a crime. And it really shouldn't be. And it's just ridiculous that it is. What was that new Dr. Meachlam case or news that came out this week, Miggy?
Oh, yeah. Well, I just closed it out. I saw you have it up there.
I have it up there. Let me go ahead and share it, and you go ahead and explain it. All right.
Well, and I still don't totally digest it because he's talking about how he's found a new, more potent than THC and CBD, but he doesn't explain what effect. But if you scroll down, the acid, the pre-acid before the plant generates EPM 301. If you scroll back up,
EPM 301.
Yeah, right there in the little section, right below the video.
Yes, revealed his latest discovery: cannabidolic acid methyl ester, EPM 301.
So I think this is just gonna be like a medicinal compound. That's all. That's why it's such a big hoopla. Because now, yay, pharmaceuticals! You can do something in the lab.
Yeah, but that's it. It's a new patented compound, synthetic, fully stable acid-based cannabinoid molecules. That is completely different than Delta 8 THC. That is completely different than Delta 8 THC. And so I'm going to go on a small hemp-based rant. And so, the definition of hemp is very, very broad. Under the 2018 Farm Bill. And so when you take hemp and then you extract it and then you have goo and then you take that goo and you provide, you might even distill it down to just the CBD and then you do an isomerization of that to Delta 8 THC, that is hemp, according to my understanding, and hopefully also soon this lawsuit. And by soon, I mean this lawsuit will probably take, the lawsuit to sue the DEA will probably take years, or it could be disqualified by a motion for dismissal in the coming months. But we will report more on that here at Cannabis Legalization News.
Well, like you said too, that the number that they referenced for hemp is just arbitrary. I heard a great analogy how cannabis is kind of like corn, because corn can be grown for various reasons, oil, soy, all the other industrial stuff. But just like cannabis, it can be grown for rope or it can be grown for fun.
Yep. And cannabinoids can be synthesized in the lab, but you can also take natural cannabinoids and do some processing and some extracting and some isomerizations and get other stuff that still doesn't have this Delta 9 in it, that has Delta 8, which has been studied for decades, and it's more safe than the Delta 9 version.
I just think it's crazy that we're so determined to have a lab-based product to be considered legal, whereas you have a freaking plant. It's natural. Just go for it. Give it a try.
That's right. How dare you have a plant, sir? Let's weigh the plant and then sentence him to a large amount of prison.
I mean, it's not going to kill you. What is hemlock illegal? I don't think it is. Can we grow hemlock legally?
I don't know, man. Half the stuff under your kitchen cabinet will probably kill you. And then if that's not enough to kill you, go to the medicine cabinet. And what the heck?
You need the power of
Hey, Google.
No, that was one of my open browsers for the next news article that I wanted to report on. And you have to be careful when you're trying to get news from the internet, because news from the internet, like anything else, is filtered through a lens of bullshit, and that bullshit is trying to sell you stuff. And so I wanted to report the polls out of Montana for its ballot initiative before we brought on our guest. Unfortunately, the rag that I had on the internet started advertising to us, and that was the audio that you heard there. And so, no, but good news out of Montana polls, it appears that approximately 70% of people do support the legalization of cannabis in Montana, which is a population of about 1 million individuals, some of which are more righteous and guests of the show than others. So let's talk about Montana.
Yeah, let's bring on Joel. Hey, Joel, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, everybody. How you doing today? It's good to see you.
So
Great.
tell us a little bit about what you're doing at Silverman Law Office.
Yeah, well, we've got two offices, one in Helena and one in Bozeman. We represent a large number of bars, restaurants, casinos. And when medical marijuana came into passage in Montana, it was just a natural fit because the licensing requirements are very similar. Matter of fact, and I know we'll get into it, but if the new law passes for recreational, it's going to put the control of recreational marijuana underneath the Montana Department of Revenue, which is where liquor is controlled in Montana.
How many times has Montana reinvented its medical? I used to travel through Montana as a technician, and 2011, I see you smiling. You remember like the billboards, like it was blatant. It was people saying, "Hey, we got medical, and we're going to bring it to you." And then not everybody liked that.
It was not liked, not just politically in Montana. It was not liked by the feds either. The feds did a very large sting in Montana across the state and hit several of the grow operations, almost all of them. And they were able to get them on tax evasion charges to gun charges. About everything they could bring under the sun. And it was quite the big sting, and it really put a chilling effect on the medical marijuana industry in Montana.
Yeah, it's pretty wild too, because it wasn't even an even persecution, because right down the street from you, from Bozeman, there's a gentleman that was busted. He was a member of a church, and in his interview, he's like, "I pay taxes on this medical marijuana, and so it's like I'm paying to arrest myself." And then actually, the judge didn't give him a sentence. He said, "Look, I don't want to put you in prison for something that doesn't make sense." Whereas Richard Floor was in prison for a year and passed away in prison.
Mm-hmm. And Floor ended up in federal prison.
Yeah.
And there was a reason they brought it as I believe a reason they brought it as a federal case rather than a state case is because many juries would not have been behind criminalizing medical marijuana at that point. And it was much easier to prosecute those cases federally, especially if they had guns on location.
And of course, they have guns on location. They have weed and money.
Lots of cash.
Maybe I would like to protect my weed and money. Can I have a gun? I'm sorry. That exposes you to further criminal penalty. Oh, man. And so do you think that back in the day, and when I say back in the day, that was 2011. It's not like this was 1964 or something. They were using IRC 280E as a prosecutorial device to be able to go in and shut down these places and say, you haven't paid your taxes because you haven't been paying the double taxation, and they just did the raids that way. I've never read any of the complaints.
No, it was one way for them to get to the subpoenas. And that was because they could say to the court, to the judge, hey, we know that they're not paying their full share of taxes. And oftentimes in the tax world, we also have several tax attorneys. I'm including it as one of them. That what they do is they run statistical analysis. With that analysis, they can go in and say, look, we know this place is selling this much marijuana based on their square footage. They should be raising this much money and raising this much in taxes. Well, look, here's their return, Your Honor. We know they're tax cheats. This is a large enough number to warrant us to go seize their records. And, oh, ta-da, they're guns, and we now have federal felonies.
Oh, wow. That's something else. I just can't even conceive it. Like, there's standardization of yield and output velocity of a cannabis operation being used to as a basis for tax fraud. And so the factual, showing of that, they know how cannabis works. They know, well, I wasn't using that. I mean, how do you defend that? I'm sorry, we only get 2 harvests a year, Your Honor. We were doing outdoor, and we don't use that method of harvesting. We were growing different strains. That's just ridiculous.
Well, and it's nothing new though. This is what's crazy is it was new for the feds to go that route, but it was nothing new as far as the IRS using it in other industries. So especially cash heavy industries, they will use this as a method, if you will, to try and find tax loopholes in cash heavy industries to see where are people actually hiding cash.
How is that even legal for an agriculture product? Because, like, for one, you're saying, hey, you're going to have the best harvest every freaking year and you're never going to encounter anything. And two, like, you're assuming that this mass amount is going to be X amount of dollars, whereas sometimes you need to concentrate or, edible. It's going to go into other stuff. It's not going to just be a whole flower.
And I know I'm opening a huge crazy can of worms here, but what it is, it's kind of like a statistical analysis, if you will. And so it's not dead set accurate by any means, because every operation is different, right? You may have one operation that's going to, process stuff down into different tinctures, edibles, whatever, that's not actually for inhalation. And so they're going to have a different kind of sales process in the end, and amount that they're going to sell versus someone who's just selling bud. And so with that, right, a pure flower operation, it has a different type of production capacity and different type of sales regime, but it's really not that hard to figure out when you look at just simple numbers and what a typical operation of a certain size would sell.
Like an averaging, probably.
I think it's just awesome that's what they. It's terribly awesome because it's interesting and fascinating, but it's just oppressive and it's shocking, and it was very cruel to Mr. Glore, by the way, and so that it's used against them like that. But the sophistication of the tax man and the prosecutors, they know. They aren't fool. They understand this game, but they're just using it strictly against you. And so it's the auditors at the IRS probably also know, and that might be one of the reasons why the industry is so frequently audited.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that, number one, cash. Any cash business has a very high likelihood of audit. We see that an awful lot. So Montana also has legalized gaming. In a very specified kind of way. And so we have machines, and it was funny, an IRS agent came to talk one year at the convention in Montana, and they were trying to make this big deal about Montana casinos being this haven for cash abuse in the tax system. And they absolutely did not understand how our industry works. All these machines, almost all of them in Montana, are now connected to the internet. You can't hide a penny that goes into a machine that is connected to the internet, because the reason they're connected to the internet is to report the taxes to the state.
That's what it is. But like that's
taxes.
And then the seed to sale tracing in the industry. And so, yeah.
Exactly.
Right? It has nothing to do with controlling the supply. I mean, yes, it does, but it's the supply of the taxes they're trying to control.
Yeah,
100%. And let's face it. So in Montana, that's a perfect example. Montana, when they passed via voter initiative to legalize medical marijuana, there was no tax on it. And at one point, I had worked for the Montana Department of Revenue for over 6 years there as one of their main tax attorneys, and worked with a lot of liquor and gaming cases as well. But when I first opened my office, somebody in the marijuana industry came to me and they said, Joel, we have this problem coming down the pipe. We know it. And it was after the bust. And they said, legislatively, here's what we believe we're going to face. And I said, how are you guys so foolish not to see how easy this is? Tax it. And they threw their hands up and they said, Joel, we can't tax it. If we tax it, this is medicinal. And I said, you have to get beyond a Republican Party that doesn't like this. The only way you get beyond it is give them money.
That's right.
You give them money.
I noticed that you don't like me. Would you like $1?
Yes.
Now, how would you rate me now? You still don't like me too much. How about $10? Okay, good. I'm going to start calling you buddy. But then it's fascinating that was the hook and the lure. It's so easy. Pay them.
Yeah.
Because, well, let's face it. Any state government's not getting smaller anywhere in the country. You're in Illinois, Tom. Holy crap, one of the most corrupt states in the country.
Oh, if you want more proof of that, read our news. And like another one of the pieces of news we didn't report in the news summary, so bonus news. All the craft growers have now sued the state to petition for a writ of mandamus, which basically release the scores. Tell us what happened. Nice. And so they're now suing on all sides, and it just and so now I'm advising people that want to get in next round. I'm like, look, you might you're early. That's good. Let's keep working on it. Let's find that real estate. Let's get your team together. But expect that as soon as the legislature gets back in January, there's probably going to be amendments to this law because they've screwed up and they are trying to avoid the lawsuits in the future. And I guarantee there's going to be amendments to the statute next spring, hopefully before the next round of dispensary applications.
Well, if you want to see a long line of corruption legally, you have to look no further than the alcohol and gaming industries in Illinois. It is absolutely atrocious. And we've had some clients who wanted to expand, and Illinois was a favored location. And I said, oh boy, good luck on that one.
Those are the people that won. That got into the license lotto. A lot of them had connections to either the state government, Chicago government, the liquor commission, and then also gaming. Now, I'm not sure if the liquor one was in there, but I know the gaming was in there. And then, KPMG, it helps if you have a guy who scored the test,
Yep.
That's wonderful.
No, it's terrible. It's not America. That is not America. That's cronyism,
Or is it really America?
For us, our legislature passed a huge limitation that a grower could only have so many patients. And it was like, I'm going to get this wrong, 10 patients maybe. But I think it was even smaller than that. But they were greatly limited in the number of patients they could have and the number of plants they could grow per patient. So it basically wiped out the entire industry. The industry files a lawsuit. Judge overturns the law, says the law is unconstitutional. And so we kind of get this mismatch of legislative law and now a court decision. And so then that gets fixed back in 2017. And so where we're at today, it started with a 2% tax. Then it's a 4% tax, which is what it was originally intended to be. They accelerated it. Tax benefits have been phenomenal for the state. We're a small state. They collected somewhere between $68 and $80 million in revenues, not marijuana taxes, total revenues is what they estimated. So we've got about $3+ million in tax revenues for a small state like Montana. That's huge, right? It doesn't sound like much, but when now you start talking about legalization, it's going to have a 20% sales tax. And we're a state that hates sales tax. We don't have one. Only municipalities can have a sales tax. We have hidden sales tax in our lodging facilities tax and our telecommunications taxes. There's a few others, but it's really now going to be this 20% sales tax from the grower's side. That is from on heaven.
Wow.
Because growers are already getting screwed tax-wise, right? Because they can only deduct their cost of goods sold.
Right.
Well, this is a sales tax, so it's on the consumer, not the grower.
Oh,
if there'd been another tax on the grower, it would have been a non-deductible federal tax. So if this passes, this is great for the growers.
Yeah.
Right? But it's a 20% tax on the consumer. Ooh, yeah. That's pretty steep.
But I think that tax, and I hate to say that you're right with this one, Joel, because that tax is like a protection. If Washington would have just done that, a lot of people tried too. A lot of people set money aside. When I used to make purchases in the cash only, say they said $20 for an eighth, and then, well, there's another $5.25 for tax, and they would put that to the side supposedly. I don't know, but I would think you would. I've heard of several issues where people like have a heart up here. They actually had to try to get a shakedown from a federal tax person because he was actually paying a lot. Man reaped in a lot. But the fact is, though, if the state is behind it, because earlier, like I was asking you earlier about the beginning of Montana's medical, and it was the Wild West of just weed everywhere. And you have a great culture, too. I know a lot of people there. But, yeah, a simple tax would have at least got the state behind the industry, I think.
Yeah. Once you give the state government money, good luck getting it back. I mean, not just getting it back, but giving it up in the future.
Right.
So if you guys want, I can walk you through kind of where the tax dollars go. I got to give the folks credit who put this ballot initiative together. They actually were really creative in how they did it. And if I were going to push something in another state, I would do it kind of this way, because where they're putting the money is really interesting. They've got 10% of the money is going to go to the Department of Public Health and Human Services to work on existing agency issues and to help with different community-based programs, and also to help with healthcare costs. They've got 4% is going to go to help wildlife. So if you're an outdoor enthusiast, this is supposed to help fish, wildlife, and parks. They've got another 4% going into the state park system, so to help improve state parks. 4% is going to go into recreational facilities specifically. 37% is going to go into Department of Fish, Wildlife, and Parks for wildlife habitat. And then they've got only 10% of this goes into the state general fund, which is, I was shocked. I think
that's awesome.
Yeah, if the legislators are going to have one problem, it's that. Yeah. Right? Well, hey, wait a second. We legislators, we should get the biggest chunk.
But then I think the legislatures are going to be sitting there going like, we're fixing the parks. All right, guys, let's take them next week. We're good, right? We can table this, come back in 2 weeks. Okay, see ya. And then if they don't want to be stuck in the legislature all day, it's great, you know?
Well, and in the end, what are they going to do? Say, I hate birds. I hate animals.
Yeah, the reason I moved to Montana was to be away from all nature.
Well, especially in big sky country, yeah.
Exactly, right? So, and then we've got all sorts of other stuff here going in for dealing with localities. So 10% of this money is going to end up in locality hands, which is how do locals say, no, we don't want to help our local schools and local programs. So right. The numbers I've seen are between 33 and 38 million in the first year, talking about 45 million in tax revenue by like 2025. If this passes, there's no way it ever goes backwards.
Birds, man. I can't wait to go to Montana. It's after you guys have had it legal for a few years. You'll have a lot of nice digs. You know, it'll be wonderful to camp there. I'm not sure if I deal with February there, but you know, summer I'm sure is beautiful.
Wait, you live in Illinois?
I begrudgingly live in Illinois. It was the most active scene of cannabis when I started my firm, and now I'm like sitting there and going like, boy, Florida's starting to look hot with that Flora grown case. If that thing breaks wide open, and then I have Sibs that live in Tampa, and so look for us to do a lot more Florida content, especially in the winter months. But I hope to get to Montana next year. That'd be awesome. Like, what's the licensing regime that it looks like? Is it going to be open? Is it going to be license caps? How's it looking?
Right now, it's open. They did not put a cap in. So for liquor, it is based on population. So we only have so many liquor licenses in a given city or a county. This is open for licensure. Now, cities can put zoning restrictions in that would prohibit somebody from being an operator in the recreational facility. But I don't see that's going to really be a problem in many of our communities, especially the larger communities. And then the smaller communities will see that even if they put a restriction in, I think they'll see that very quickly and change their mind on that. But so the application itself is very similar. I'm assuming it's going to be very similar to a liquor application: fingerprint cards, personal history statements, no felonies that are of importance to the marijuana industry. And other than that, it's just kind of what's your corporate structure. Anybody that's more than a 1% owner has to be disclosed and go through the whole personal history side of things. But it's pretty minimal.
Man, so like this isn't going to be one of those $90,000 to $125,000 applications that the consultants come in and it's a 1,500 page application.
No, it's actually going to be pretty easy. And right now, our current regime for medical marijuana, and it's going to stay this way, is through Department of Public Health and Human Services. At least it's going to stay that way as we know right now, because there's no legislation to change it. But they've been a great state agency to work through. Absolutely fantastic for us. We call them, we have questions, they answer. They want to help people provide a better product and better service to those folks that are in healthcare needs for medical marijuana. And so the state's really been a wonderful tool to work with.
So right now you guys only have medical. What is the model? Are you guys doing a collective model, or is it like, can you actually have a company out there?
Yes. So it's very much structured business structure. So you can have multi-tier structured business. So you could have multiple tiers of growers or processors, refiners, to then having a retail facility that's on the end side for the consumer. So much less also having a separate company to own the real estate, right? If you're trying to ensure that maybe federally you're not going to run into any problems if the feds come in to do a bust, because it's still tier one. The feds come in to do a bust and they're going to nail everything. You may be able to find some protection by setting up a separate company owning the real estate.
Do you do vertical integration as well there?
Yep.
Wow.
That's awesome. So then if I wanted to be vertically integrated, I would just stack the licenses?
Well, there's yes, basically. So as I read the statute, and I could be wrong on this, but as I've read the statute, and it's not one, it's literally 30 pages. The way you can, so on the medical marijuana side, you have to be vertically integrated. On the recreational side, you won't. Ooh. You'll actually be able to buy product from another manufacturer to sell it to the retailer. So if you've got a special refining process that makes the best vape, I can go through you to buy it and sell it in my store.
Right on.
Neat. So processor's dream kind of. No, it sounds fantastic. So now the next question is: are there any direct flights between Chicago and Bozeman? You know,
there is from Boston. I know. I don't know about Chicago. I actually work at it. I live and work out of Helena, and come over and work with our Bozeman team 1 or 2 days a week. And so I very rarely fly out of Bozeman.
I tell you what, though, if you get a chance, Tom, to get to Montana, some of the best people I've ever smoked with out there, and friendly, like the locals. I had to hang out in Bozeman. I went to drive across to Wyoming, and I picked up a hitchhiker who was a cook at Big Sky, like at the. I mean, we're talking Oprah Winfrey resort type hangout.
Oprah resort type.
Yeah, that's where she hangs. That's where they holiday, and because
they're not JT.
Yeah. Well, you're not far from the what's the Riviera for millionaires out there, Jackson Hole.
Yeah. Yellowstone Mountain Club is right up the hill. Jackson Hole's just down the street, basically.
So much money out there, dude. In
real estate.
Center.
Yeah.
But and just you
know what?
Okay.
Let's go make a weed company and sell them all weed. Hey, here's that stuff you like. Go back to your state. Hey, I noticed that your state's kind of like, weird when it comes to that weed that you like that I had, right? Can I get a license in your state? Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So it's funny because, Tom, that's actually a great question. For medical marijuana, you have to be a resident of Montana, and you had to have been a resident for, I believe, the last 3 years to be licensed. I did not see that in the recreational, but that doesn't mean I didn't miss it. I'm more worried about the business side of getting things. Okay, how can I structure this? How can I figure out ways to minimize taxes for my clients and get them licensed and, do all that kind of game. And I didn't think to look to see if we have that residency requirement on the grow and sale side of the recreational, but I didn't see it.
It's very often a thing. I mean, like cannabis legalization helps the locals. And so if you've lived there longer, they're going to preference you in getting that license. But sometimes it's, it depends on if they do it by points or they just have restrictions. Like foreign investment can't be in more than 30% of the license ownership or something like that.
Yeah. And for us, it's not a point system. It's just straight restrictions that they have. So.
Is there protections for the legacy market, like for medical? Are they going to transition to recreational, or is it just going to stay medical? You stay in your lane, we stay in our lane?
The way I'm reading the laws is they're separate. So if you're going to be medicinal, you're going to have to fall underneath medicinal, and you can still deal with those people who want to get cards, do all the medicinal stuff, and then they're not subject to the 20% tax. But if you want to avoid going medicinal and you're going to go recreational, then you're going to pay the 20% sales tax, and you can get it at any time.
I can imagine the quality is going to be different between the two greatly.
I can imagine the quality is going to be all over the map if it's that open, so anybody who can pass a background check and start growing the plant.
You would think, but we have a very strict testing lab. So while quality could be a challenge, I think that's going to be easily overcome just by the testing labs. So they're very stringent on pesticides, issues of personal harm. And so they really do we have the whole tracking, right? Seed to table, if you will. Yeah. And so, and they tag every plant. Every plant's tagged in Montana, so they know where every plant ends up. We had a client who they had a split up between members, and they just shut the thing down. And the state came right in and was like, "Where'd these plants go?"
Oh shit!
And we were able to find all of them, except for somehow some plants got shredded and ended up, and they were not flowered plants. They were in hibernation, and they got shredded into a garbage bag. And what they were able to find is one of the employees stole it.
Oh shit!
And they were able to track that person down.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. That's awesome, but that's also usually where a lot of theft comes from. It's the internal theft that you have to really be careful and vigilant of. Yeah. And that's really neat that it's going to be that open. But and let's see, other questions about it. So like home grow. Let's talk about a little bit about like home grow in the law. What's that looking like?
Boy, this is kind of a neat thing too. I'm not a grower, not a smoker, but personal use and cultivation. You're going to be allowed to have 1 ounce in possession, and they've gotten rid of most of the criminal aspects of marijuana in Montana if this voter initiative goes through. You can have 4 mature plants and 4 seedlings. And then if you have more than 1 ounce in your home, the requirement is that it has to be locked up and out of sight. And that's it. I mean, it's
weed cave.
Cool. Yeah, and one other thing, you either have to own the home or have the written permission from the landowner.
Right.
So if you're renting your house and you want to grow in your house, you get a letter from the landowner that you're leasing from, and ta-da, you're good to go.
So, and this is going to be coming up with the initiative number 118. Is that what you guys refer to it as?
Yeah. Well, it's 2. So we have Constitutional Initiative 118, which is to change that in Montana's Constitution, we defined who an adult is, someone over 18. But in that same constitutional initiative 118 says, okay, we are going to require that if you are going to be subject to this law or get the benefits of the law, you have to be over 21, just same as alcohol. Mm. And then we have initiative number 190, which lays out all of the recreational marijuana statutes.
Wow. Why is it one's going to be a constitution initiative and the other one's going to be hey, this is what's legal now?
Because Montana's constitution is what defined adulthood. Mm. And you have to go there to define a benefit to be received as an adult. Oh. So they had to make an amendment to the Constitution for that legal jargon. And then the initiative, which is dealing with all the state statutes, the Montana Code, to deal with making marijuana recreational legal, dealing with the crossover to medical marijuana and Department of Public Health and Human Services, additions to statutes dealing with Department of Revenue and their control.
It's so wild that you refer to adulthood at 18, but then you say, but wait, you got 3 more years so you can enjoy this law that we're creating over there now.
Yeah, it's the stuff that's been going on has been quite entertaining. I mean, the literally, so this is our voter information pamphlet. It's, fairly thick. 3/4 of it is about the marijuana law passage. So it's pretty wild.
That is pretty wild. And then when is this coming up? This election, right? Is that
November?
Awesome.
And amazingly enough, Montana's we hear the president talking a lot about mail-in ballots and fraud and everything. Our mail-in ballots went out last week. So many people have already voted on the entire ballot. So
All right, but are they going to count them? I mean, and is that going to like hit like a Republican desk between now and the end of the election? They're going to be like, "Oh, where did these come from, Bozeman? We don't need to count them. They've been rejected."
We do have a Democrat for governor, which is sometimes amazing. But we've believe it or not, Montana being a very conservative state, we've had a Democrat for governor for 16 years.
And I hate like Montana. You get this picture of the Midwest. You think cowboy hats and ignorance, but like I've been there, right? And there was a gay pride parade in Bozeman, and drag queens bigger than me. I'm like, holy shit, where am I? This is awesome. I love this. It was not what I expected from Montana. You know, it's a great place. It's a great place to smoke, the hike, and all the other stuff.
Absolutely.
Hey, Tom, you really need to check out your yoga and the rivers.
Yeah, I do. I need to. I'm sorry. Like, and it's COVID free now, right? I mean, you guys don't have to worry about that no more.
Yeah, no problem with it.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So, is there any social equity in the bill that's coming up?
In what way?
Like in Illinois, we tried to like say if you've been arrested for cannabis in the past, you're more likely to be able to get a license.
Yeah, you know, the social equity is more on the side of releasing someone from their criminal record.
Nice. Expunging. Yeah.
And I'm not a criminal law attorney. My gosh, I see criminal law, you know, probably like you, Tom. My eyes glass over and I'm going to take a nap.
I'm sorry, you're not a bank or a cannabis company. I'm not going to be very useful.
Yeah, if you're not a business, you know, I'm kind of the same way. If you've been convicted, if this passes and you're still in jail, incarcerated, you'll be released if you fit within the guidelines of it. And then if you have any sort of warrant outstanding for you, that will get released, or you can move to get it released. Your criminal history, you can get expunged if it falls within these certain guidelines. So it's actually, I was shocked by how broad that was. It was really nice to see.
Nice. What do you know what the numbers are for people locked up right now in Montana?
No, I don't. I have no clue. Not my world.
Yeah. Again, I totally get it. It's a hot topic.
Joel, thank you so much for joining us today. Where can we go to find and follow what you guys got going on at Silverman Law Office?
Absolutely. Thanks, Lauren. Thank you, guys. Tom, Nikki, this was awesome. If anybody wants to look further into us, you can either find us on our website at mttaxlaw.com. You can find us on YouTube at Silverman Law Office. We've got just a huge number of videos up. We do business interviews throughout the state of Montana. We've not interviewed any cannabis businesses, just for worry of what the government might do. But hey, you know, now that if this passes, then great, we're going to get we do a video blog just like you guys, but it's not live. We record it and then come back. And what we try and do is show people that being a business in Montana doesn't mean you have to think small-minded. You can do big things here.
So, nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much again. And thanks for tuning in, everyone. Make sure you like and subscribe to keep up with all cannabis legalization news and sign up for our newsletter at cannabisindustrylawyer.com. We will see you guys on Sunday.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Joe.